Okay, how do you know when you're awakened?
You just know. No, more and more so, I'm less interested in that wording or that phrasing or making a kind of hard demarcation between awake or not awake. There seems to be many life-changing thresholds that can be passed in terms of presence of mind, metacognition, a kind of clarity of perception and sense of inner equanimity, and there can be these big bump ups in those. But for some people, it's more of a very gradual process. And the thing is from one side of passing a particular threshold, it looks like some big insurmountable mountain that's going to be, once you get over it, it's going to radically change your understanding of yourself and your life. And in some sense, it's not that that's not true, but once you get on the other side and you look back, it's not this giant mountain you've passed over. It was more of a kind of a molehill, and you've gained greater capacity of mind. So you just recontextualize all that was previously in experience within a wider, greater spatio-temporal framework of mind, until eventually even space and time are contextualized themselves. And so on the other side of these thresholds, it looks very different, and one doesn't see that they've fundamentally changed in nature. You see that these shifts were never what I presumed them to be, and everyone already contains what I'm now aware of. They just are not aware of it yet themselves. Like the importance of having a consistent practice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I can ask, what happens if you miss a day? What happens if you miss a week or a month?
All your gains, all your consciousness gains, go back to zero if you miss a day.
God, I hope not.
Yeah, of course you don't want to be too hard on yourself, but I think most people who really go the distance and really radically change their default setup of mind to be one that is just more peaceful and more liberated day to day, have sunk in an incredible amount of time into meditation. There is a physiological process here that takes time to retrain, to recondition the mind, to undo certain binding traps. And for some very lucky people, that can happen sporadically, seemingly spontaneously, randomly, all at once, walking down the street. But for most of us, we got to put in the work, and the odds are you're not going to be one of these people walking down the street and something spontaneously shifts. And even if you are, you still need to do a lot of integration work after that. And so just to hedge your bets, put in the time, really start a daily meditation habit, sit down every day, ideally an hour a day, and think of it like just ongoing mental health workouts. I think that's a good way to think about it. Just like you'd go to the gym and train in that way.
Why 1 hour?
Yeah, why 1 hour? Because at the 1 hour mark, that's when things tend to get interesting. Just from what I've observed personally and talking to other people, it seems on average, the first 30 minutes is just like warming up, just settling the mind, from your more chaotic, busy day-to-day routines and having to calm down and stay with your eyes closed and sitting still. It can take about 30 minutes to let a lot of the gross distractions defabricate and rest. And then you've got an extra half an hour and you're like really warmed up and you've got some momentum going to fully give in to the practice that you're doing. A lot of time spent meditating is often done quite half-assed. Even if we're physically showing up, it's like there are many sub-minds that are not on board with the meditation yet, and it takes time to collect them, to unite them, unify the organism here to be all in line with one particular objective, to concentrate on this meditation object, or to do self-inquiry or notice particular facets of phenomena. And it's worth routinely checking in with yourself whether you are putting in as much effort as you can into the meditation set. You might be there, you might be partly doing it, partly tracking whatever you're trying to track or do whatever technique you're trying to do. But you know in the back of your mind, there's lots of you that kind of want to be elsewhere, that are thinking about something else. Become aware of those other parts and reassure yourself, hang on, whatever they want to attend to, they can do that later after the meditation. But right now we're here to fully do it. Like here and now is the time to wake up. I mean, it has to happen in the here and now. And that's about coming to a point of enough internal collectedness. And it seems to be there are energy thresholds that need to be made in order to break through certain binding delusions. And if you're not feeding the mind with enough directed attentional energy, then you're not going to be able to see in greater detail important qualities of mind that are otherwise keeping us deluded and in states of unnecessary suffering. I think curiosity is the healthiest motivator, especially along the meditation path, to get curious about life, about experience, about what is this? What am I? And that can really propel someone to look. That can really direct the energy in powerful ways, but also creative ways to consider trying on new perspectives. I think curiosity can effortlessly keep one coming back to practice, as opposed to maintaining a kind of hard-nosed discipline where you're pushing yourself because you have some sense of unworthiness, or you're chasing something or trying to get away from something, or driven by so much suffering. Those do play a role, and they can play a role, but I really like to encourage people to discover their own curiosity. And curiosity is something that can be nurtured within. We can feign curiosity, we can kind of fake it until it becomes genuine, and feed it. And so if you're prompted in this way, start asking questions. And if you don't know which questions to ask, read books and talk to people who are asking these questions, and they can give you the idea of which questions to ask. And then they can become your own questions. And then you'll think of new questions yourself. But keep exploring, keep investigating. So I think curiosity is very important on the path. Often when people start meditating, they start with a lot of self-doubt, like whether they can trust their own experience, and they're often trying to export their understanding of consciousness, of mind, by referring to teachers or just other people to tell them, oh, what should I be experiencing, or am I doing the technique right? And it is very important to gain an internal self-confidence that you can trust your own experience, that ultimately only you know what you're experiencing. No one else can see what you see or hear what you hear. And so you have to give yourself that permission to trust your own experience, and also train certain cognitive faculties that is going to give you more precision of mind and clarity of understanding when there's an emotion, what emotion is it, when there's a reaction to that emotion, how and where that manifests in the body, for example, what kind of subtle mental images are flashing in association with other phenomena. But then, if we want to share our experience, we do just have phenomenological reporting, and so it's important to have a shared language that people can communicate their experiences to one another and understand what each other are talking about. So without a precise phenomenological language, when people throw out terms like having an ego-death experience or entering the jhanas, they may be talking about very different states of mind. That actually what one person means by ego-death is not what another person meant by ego-death. And so there's some importance to being very clear with your language. There is that. There is also a more subtle kind of intuitive detection that people can develop and pick up along the path that, you know, at some points you can just tell by body language and the way someone talks that they've likely had certain experiences or reached certain levels of awakening, and you can just tell by that person's demeanor. You can just see that they're coming from a different place. Yeah, where the emphasis is, where the stress is. You know, you see how balanced someone is in terms of rushing through life or leaning really heavily into the future and putting all the weight and the value in front of them rather than, you know, in the past, or being very balanced there, being able to acknowledge where they are in time and space and along this journey of life.
Mm. And also imagination is a tool in meditation as well.
Yeah.
How do you use that?
Yeah. So that
Carefully.
That was a really good point. Like, how do you know if you're really experiencing something or you're just imagining it? Well, the truth is even imagination is a type of experience. So there isn't actually a difference between imagining something and experiencing something. There's just a degree of richness, you know, with the experience. And imagination is just very, very faint experiencing of a kind. And so it's all our imagination in a way. You know, the mental, what you perceive so-called mentally and what you perceive here physically is not of a different type. It's not of a different kind. It's of a different degree of phenomenological richness. A lot of times when I'm guiding people in a kind of meditation where we're going to perceive like vast, open, boundless spaciousness, many people, they're unsure, like, well, I don't know if I'm really having this big open awareness experience or if I'm just imagining it. And I tell them, that's okay, imagine it. There really isn't actually much of a difference. The thing that you really care about is a release of a sense of pressure and contraction. And by releasing certain contractions, often like in the head, tight pressure like that, it reveals the wide open spacious awareness. And so however much you're tuning into that, and you keep tuning into that, that will be releasing these contractions. And so I say, just keep imagining, that's okay. It's okay, it's going to feed into it, it's going to lead to the same place you want it to get to. Either imagine big and think big, and then you reach a boundary and just kind of perceive on the other side of that and keep going, and that's going to release the contractions and give you this wide open spacious awareness, or go the other way around and just start releasing the contractions somatically, and that's going to reveal the wide open spacious awareness as well.
Can you expand more on the contractions?
Contractions are inherent to experience. It's the quality that gives anything form. The reason why we perceive anything, there's subtle contracting, forming of the sense phenomena to bring anything about into existence, to reify it. And the thing is when those contractions become too gross and not evenly distributed throughout the experience space, then they start causing us a lot of problems. That's when we really feel the suffering turn up. And one way to understand what people are doing in life is they're just trying to manage different contractions that they feel throughout their body-mind experience in day-to-day life that's making them feel uneasy, and that people are seeking experiences of greater expansion, the opposite of contraction, to ease their suffering. And people go about this in many different ways, and some ways seem to be more effective and productive than others. Yeah, so I wanted to talk about a lot of what I'm doing when I teach meditation is introducing many techniques, many ways of applying one's attention and accessing a plethora of conscious states to reveal to people just the magnitude and the diversity of how one's present moment experience can be. You know, how the mind can present itself. And so what this is doing is giving people a lot of flexibility in perception and experience, to recognize there's so many different ways of seeing. And I think by expanding people's conscious horizons in that way, two things: you loosen your attachment to any particular one state of mind to be in, as you realize there's so many other ways of being, and they all have their own degrees of verisimilitude or value or truth-telling to them, and delusion and ignorance. That no state of mind gives you the whole picture. That reality is perspectival in this way. And secondly, gaining greater flexibility of mind gives one like a greater liberation to play with their consciousness and their experience. And this means we're not so attached to any particular experience of mind, and we recognize, even in those different states of mind, what seem to be the universal qualities between them. That no matter how this is set up, no matter how the smells and the sounds and the tastes and the colors and the sensations are presenting themselves, within all of that, there isn't a main central controller, even though it might present itself like that, but it's not really the one driving the show, that none of this is permanent, that all of this is in flux and ever changing. There aren't really these hard boundaries. And there's many more insights like this to gain that seem to give one this greater degree of understanding and sanity about what we're in, what we're living, what we're experiencing, what we're working with, that helps one arrive at a point of kind of getting it. And part of getting it is also recognizing that there's an inherent not knowing to of this. So you don't get to drill down to any kind of fundamental ultimate truth that is stable and consistent among any state of mind. And there's a freedom in letting go in that, and then just accepting and being with whatever experience you're happening at time, and knowing the ingredients of what this is made of the senses, and having the skill sets to move your attention and go into other states of mind, or have better theory of mind and empathy to understand where others might be stuck, or where they're coming from, what their experience is likely to be. By visiting a broader array of conscious experiences, we get the show. We recognize what this is. You know, with a greater flexible mind, we also recognize the co-creation of ourselves with our environment. That how we show up, who manifests in this moment, how they speak, is because of all the causes and conditions of the past and the environmental happenstance. And there's no separation there. There's no you independent of your environment. And so there is something to recognizing there isn't a fixed identity to preserve here. It's like who am I really? At every moment you reveal who you are. And what you are is incredibly complex, incredibly sophisticated, incredibly capable. And you demonstrate that by like how well you are acting and navigating all the different life's circumstances. And there's the lifetime of proof to show you. Like you've made it this far. And you continue to learn and continue to grow. And there's a learning and a growing with the times. There's no being independent of that. You know, you see how diverse nature is. Like that's what you're capable of. Like all the amazing things. I mean, there's something that really comes down to like when you really understand the no-self insight, and not just understand intellectually or even merely like experientially, but embody it. Like it's so pervasively saturated throughout. Then in a funny way, and in a non-egotistical way, you feel a kind of ownership isn't the right word, but I'm going to say ownership with everything that has been done, that all mankind does. That you're like, wow, we do that, I do that, you do that. But in this kind of like, the universe is capable of doing all these things. But that comes with a lot of responsibility, because it includes the magnificent and beautiful, but also the horror, also all the atrocities. And so yeah, there's something to becoming nothing to become everything, to not just wake up, but to grow up and take on a radical responsibility for the whole. And yet, despite the radical responsibility, recognizing there's no one controlling this, no one doing it. Yet there's still a care and a responsible stewardship that naturally comes about. So how do we develop a more flexible mind, essentially? I think we do this via training a number of factors that I like to highlight, which is our concentration ability, our metacognition, our noticings per second, and our sensory clarity. And by applying different repetitive meditative techniques, we strengthen those cognitive faculties, and those are really the tools that help us inspect and understand our experience at any given moment. And then, no matter what's going on, we can recognize. The metacognition is key here, because that is to recognize what state you are in while you're in it, and not be just totally lost to the story or the content, which that is to be deluded and caught in samsara, essentially. It's not recognizing, no, I'm not ever fully gripping around whatever is happening. I know that it will come and it will go, and I can't hold on to any of it. And there's just this groundless nature to this ineffable, mysterious something which is beyond even the concepts of thing or no thing. It can't even be put into those boxes, and yet it's much more magical than that. The idea of samsara is that we're stuck in endless kind of hell matrix setup of birth and death and rebirth, and the cycle that just perpetually spins and spins and spins of sort of desire, unfulfillment, going on forever and ever. That no matter how many desires we might try to fulfill, we're never feeling complete, and it's this endless process that we're stuck in. And how do you escape samsara is the idea. And the truth of the matter is you don't escape. You can't get out of this. There's nowhere else to go. Reality, this is reality. You are not in reality. You're not observing reality. You are reality. You're not just like sitting on top of it or anything like that. There is no getting out of this, but there is becoming lucid to the nature of the show here. And that in itself greatly frees one from dukkha or perpetual dissatisfaction with life, or always chasing the next thing and the next thing. Be able to recognize, it's possible to upgrade one's consciousness so that each moment of experience is so rich, is felt so deeply, that there isn't a sense that you need more to feel complete. And it's not about obtaining a sense of completion and then holding on to that. It's letting go of this myth of completion, actually, that anything could complete you. And by letting go of that myth, you stop feeling dissatisfaction. The reason we feel dissatisfied in life is because we're holding on to a belief that anything could fully satisfy us, if even for a moment. So while we hold on to this belief, it comes with the experience of dissatisfaction. But if you explore phenomenal reality precisely enough, intimately enough, you recognize that this notion that any constitution of qualia bits formed together could bring a moment that you're looking for of complete satisfaction is a total myth. That's not what this does. You're lost to a utopic vision that way, that it just doesn't get realized. That's not what this thing does. And once you see through that myth, you let go of the belief of satisfaction. And by letting go of the belief of satisfaction, you stop feeling dissatisfied, which is all you ever wanted in the first place. It's not really to feel satisfied, but to stop feeling dissatisfied. So a lot of people they even think they do feel satisfied at times. It's just that it doesn't last. It's just like, oh, it's impermanent. So I feel satisfied temporarily, but then it disappears and I have to start again. I have to keep chasing these moments of satisfaction. And actually, if you inspect more closely into experience, you don't even feel it for a moment. That idea that you did feel satisfied for some period of time is a misremembering after the fact, because you weren't really very present with your experience. You actually missed the moment of satisfaction and you artificially placed it back in retrospectively and think, well, actually, I think that cigarette that I just smoked, or that food that I just ate, or whatever that experience I just had, that drug experience was really sad. So I need to get back there. But if you do everything so mindfully, so present, you realize, it actually doesn't live up to that expectation. But it's better than that. It's fuller in itself. And so you don't need to keep chasing and repeating experiences. Actually, you can't repeat experiences. You can't step into the same river twice. Not even once, even. It's just, at any given time, there's not a moment where something isn't happening, experience isn't happening. I feel like, there's a lot to learn about being in locations like this, because, the thing I really like about nature is how you see how everything flows, that really everything is flow, that even the most hardened structures in like the forest, they have a flow to them. The trees are twisting, the grain of the wood is going in a particular direction, and although they look rock solid, they are moving just very, very slowly. And then when you come out of a place like this and you go back into the city, you see a lot of these like concrete buildings with right angles that you don't perceive in nature. And the way that renders in one experience is it feels more hard-edged, more out of alignment with reality in a way. In some sense, it's all nature. It's all nature. It's all the materials in the city are just made from products of the earth. But it's like we try to forget that. We pave over the planet and it's done in an attempt to try to find stability, control, as opposed to remembering our place in nature, working with it. But it's all a process, I think, of the universe unfolding and learning about itself and seeing how it can organize itself. But we find, despite our best efforts, nothing is fixed. People are, I think, in their hearts, scared of full communion with reality, letting go into the groundless nature of this thing. They're scared that it means they'd have to give up everything, or that things won't go as part of them wishes. And it's a process of learning to reassure oneself, ease oneself, and slowly surrender and let go into this. And what you might find is then you are in greater internal alignment, which will bring you greater external alignment and more sensitivity of being able to read the intelligence all around and the signals all around, that everything has a message to give. And if you're more acutely sensitive to that, then that will guide your life. in itself.
And we're also surrounded by expanding and contractions here.
Oh yeah, so there's expansion and contraction everywhere. So yeah, in the plants and the seasons, how the foliage here, it will grow and then in the winter die and then regrow. That's a form of expansion and contraction, you know. There's those shots from space where you can see the earth like breathing as the ice sort of descends from the poles and then shrinks. And maybe we're in a time where the earth is struggling to breathe. And so the earth's like immune system has been kicked into gear. And it's like the planet's heating up, just as like our immune system would heat up to kill invasive, harmful viruses within an ecosystem, within an organism. And the consequences of that is that if it does that too much, it can kill the organism itself. Like your own immune system can kill you, and it can kill helpful bacteria if you take strong antibiotics. You know, the idea is that it kills the bad bacteria, but also the healthy bacteria as well, and can leave you worse off afterwards. Hopefully not. But maybe the planet's like immune system is kicking into gear, so we're in a mass extinction event right now as we speak. And so the Earth is not aware of exactly who the problem is or what the problem is, but it's purging a lot of species, just trying to see like how can it, everything is trying to get back to homeostasis or greater internal alignment to balance the expansion and contraction and the yin and the yang. And there can be moments of too much yin, too much yang, and it's not evenly distributed. Yeah.
How can advanced practitioners work with deep-seated conditioning?
One way I like to think about spiritual journey is becoming a bodhisattva unto yourself. So a lot of people who have really good intentions, they're very compassionate, empathetic people, they care about the suffering of other sentient beings, and they might aspire to be this sort of bodhisattva-like character, which is someone who kind of forgoes complete enlightenment until all other beings have been rescued or enlightened. And I mean, there's different versions of that. Like the bodhisattva either forgoes like full enlightenment, or they are fully enlightened, but they hang around to help other beings. But I talk about actually first becoming a bodhisattva unto yourself, because you're not going to know how to help others unless you've kind of dealt with your own shit, really. And so there's a process of, you know, this term, you got to feel it to heal it, makes a lot of sense to me. That you got to go deep in your mind and feel your past conditionings and let those challenging emotions well up. Except the mind will protect itself from what it's not ready to face or to feel if the suffering is too overwhelming. However, we can build greater capacity of mind and greater sense of internal persisting equanimity. And equanimity is born of this function of greater context of mind, so it doesn't get overwhelmed. And it comes with just a radical acceptance and non-judging. And there's a slight imbued love and positivity there to just allow whatever comes to come. And so by fostering in radical, greater equanimity with oneself, one's mind can bear to face our deeper, most challenging conditionings and live them out and accept them and metabolize them. Now, I think only by being a bodhisattva to yourself first can then you really meet others from a much purer place, as opposed to not having worked on yourself as much and creating greater internal alignment. Then you're more likely to just be projecting onto other people and really coming from a place of fear rather than love, about wanting to save people and help others. And what you might find is, I think love and compassion emerge naturally from a harmonized individual. And then it doesn't feel like you desperately need to help people or that you're working to do that. It may just come about organically. And actually one of the deep lessons is you realize people must participate in their own rescue. You cannot help someone who's not helping themselves. You can't, despite all that you may wish for someone, everyone must go on their own journey. And everyone's karma is their karma. And it takes the time that it takes. And so we can help facilitate that and provide people the safe spaces to do the inner work. But at the end of the day, they have to do it themselves. And doing it themselves, that's what's really empowering, is realizing you are the bodhisattva that you're waiting for. You get to rescue yourself. And that's super empowering.